Center is making real differences in real people's lives. Without the Labor Center, there'll be more harassment in the workplace, more discrimination in the workplace, and more Iowans will die on the job every year. Those statistics will be on the hands of President Harold and Dean Washburn. And once again, we will hold them accountable in the future. The process we've talked about briefly doesn't exist. They made a decision to steal money from working Iowans and put it in a budget where it doesn't belong. And the money they're stealing won't make that big of a difference in their new budget, but it's the difference between life and death across Iowa in dangerous work sites. The process doesn't exist because there is no dialogue. It's not a conversation to tell somebody that you're burying their program and without getting input. So we're asking the university to slow down the process, reverse the decision, take the Labor Center off the list, and engage in a real process that's constructive to all Iowans. And to talk a little more about the process, we're going to hear from Lisa Heinemann, who's with the UI faculty.
Hi, I'm Lisa Heinemann. I'm a faculty member of the Department of History. I've been at the University of Iowa just about 20 years. The announcement of the closure of the Labor Center, as well as many other centers and programs, complimented those programs for doing good work, but said they weren't necessarily critical to the university's academic mission and student success. And I want to talk a little bit about the university's mission and the Labor Center's role in fulfilling that mission. University mission is kind of a three-legged stool, right, of teaching, research, scholarship, and public engagement and community service. We've heard a lot about public engagement and community service, right? The fact that Iowa workers are students of the Labor Center, about the ways that the Labor Center has enhanced workplace safety and education. I want to talk a little bit about the other two stools, or the other two legs on the stool, I suppose, because we haven't heard quite as much about them. And I want to basically say that the Labor Center, in addition to everything you've heard about, is also critical to the university's mission in research and scholarship, as well as teaching. I speak as someone from the history department, and I've got a lot of examples from there, but I will tell you that other units in the university also rely on the Labor Center for their research and scholarship work, as well as their teaching. American Studies, the Center for Human Rights, which has one of the most popular undergraduate certificate programs, and I could go on. Let me start with some really important information about the research done at the Labor Center. We heard a little bit about the Iowa Labor History Oral Program, which is really a crown jewel. This is a nationally recognized collection of one of the most important collections for labor history in the country. People come from nationwide and internationally to do work in that collection, and every time they do, they enhance the reputation of the University of Iowa. It is a mark of recognition of the importance of that collection. That collection is also one of the reasons that the Labor Center has pulled in roughly $950,000 in grant funding in the last 15 years or so. Another way to say that is almost $1 million that the Labor Center has pulled in. And even in these tough times, rather than sort of laboring under the strain, they actually won a really important grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities, almost $200,000 just this spring. Okay, the Labor Center is going strong. To win that kind of grant from the National Endowment of the Humanities means that the Labor Center is on the map in the research world. This is what the university, one of the many things the university should be very concerned about, is the role the Labor Center has played in that way. In addition, the Labor Center is absolutely crucial to the university's teaching mission. Labor Center staff teach courses. They teach gen ed courses on labor history, both in the United States and globally, a very important part of any basic education in American and global history. These courses are brought to us by the Labor Center, so they're not just bringing their education out into the communities and to the shop floor, they are bringing their education into the undergraduate classrooms. And I want to say a little bit about what's happening in those classrooms. This is not students with a textbook being lectured at. These are students who are then going and using those interviews at ILHOP, at the Labor History Oral Project, and then doing their own interviews, going back to Iowa communities, often the community that they themselves grew up in, doing interviews to research the history of their own community, coming back, putting that stuff together. They're learning history, they're learning how to do public history as well as academic history. And when they go back to those communities and bring those interviews, do those interviews, talk to their families and their friends, they are spreading the message that the University of Iowa is involved with Iowa communities across the state. Okay? As undergraduates go and integrate the communities they came from into their undergraduate education. These materials get used then also in undergraduate honors theses, as we heard, in graduate work, in scholarship nationally and internationally. And finally, I just want to note that the Labor Center is very important in facilitating internships for students with community organizations. These internships help students to gain job skills, and they also bring fresh perspectives and energy into the hosting organizations. Okay? There's a lot going on with the Labor Center in terms of the basic educational mission, even inside the University of Iowa. There's a lot going on with the Labor Center regarding their collection of research materials and their role in helping to produce the research that basically documents the history of working people in the Midwest and in this country. It's possible that people who made this decision for closure weren't aware of all these aspects of the Labor Center's activity. They know about the grants, that's pretty big news, right? But do they know what's going on in individual classrooms? Possibly not. No one can be in command of all the detail, right? This is why, in order to make a decision like this, you need a process of gathering input, of consultation with all the parties involved, with people who are kind of on the ground doing the work, okay? I'd like to see such a process. Again, we need to sort of turn the clock back a little bit. We need to hit reset, go back, collect the information, get the input, do the consultation that's necessary to really understand what it is we would be losing. Because if this moves forward, we're losing a really invaluable resource to the university and to the people of the state of Iowa. Thank you.